Well, hello everybody. This is Jennifer Huff, and welcome to our first quantum wake up call via live stream webcast. And welcome to also the first time I was able to master the art of live stream. Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to turn on, there is actually a chat, and I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that they can join the chat room. And I'm just going to say hi to everyone so you can actually have a little talk with me. So as I drink my lemonade, just let me know that you can hear me okay, and that the sound is okay, and that the video quality is okay. Give me a heads up and let me know it's all working in our file. Yay! I'm so glad you can hear me, Cheryl. So, and again, just welcome to everybody. So excited to have this Quantum Wake Up Call going live with everyone right now. All right. I look fabulous, darling. Well, I am here in upstate New York, and I am in the middle of some pretty interesting country here, as a matter of fact, that there have been lots of bizarre and wonderful sightings lately. I just witnessed a video that was very fascinating, as sent to me by one of my friends um, from this area. So I wanted to start today by doing something new on Quantum Wake Up Calls. And the thing that I wanted to do that's new is I wanted to, and hi Irene, welcome, big troop joining us today. I know that today on Quantum Wake Up Calls, what we're going to be talking about is assistance from other planetary civilizations. Always one that seems to get a lot of listeners participating. So happy you guys could join us. Happy you're here. Yippee yahoo! And I actually wanted to read you a little something, which was the basically some of the quotes that have come through in the last couple of days that I thought would pertain. And basically, I just get messages and then I write them down. And they actually, those messages I know are destined to become awakenings, the weekly awakenings. So the first one is, your heart is calling you every second of every day. The density of the shoulds from mass consciousness is still present in the ethers these days, which is one of the reasons why our higher levels, including the extraterrestrials that helped to starseed us, are so present. For some of you, that's the first time you've ever heard me say anything like that, so it's going to be a little bit weird, but I'll explain a little bit as we go along. Awakening, however, means that in every moment you choose your heart over mass consciousness. So every second of every day, 75 trillion cells are speaking to you. They're speaking to you and translating the consciousness of the other dimensions. They are sender-receiver satellites in communion with multiple dimensions. They're communing with you all day, every day. The density of the shoulds of humanity, the musts, the have-tos, the how-tos, these are the rules, that's still present in the ethers. They exist, those densities exist as entities. And those entities exist and can be picked up by our little satellite dishes as well. The question is really, are we going to listen to the heart of infinite wisdom, or are we going to get caught up in the density of mass consciousness? And you'll always know what the heart of infinite wisdom feels like, because it always feels like fluidity, and it gives your body peace, even if sometimes your mind doesn't agree with it. The next was, sometimes we haven't even gotten out of bed and we already are putting everyone else first. Texting, emailing, phoning, thinking, all the to-dos, instead of listening to what's being called for from our higher levels. tomorrow morning when you wake up, as an option if you wish, before you get out of bed, look at what's already there. Look at what's there before you even arise, because most of it is mass consciousness, because we haven't distinguished the difference between the low grade sound that's in the background and infinite wisdom's calling. So the next I really loved. It was part when I was, many of you know about the innate abilities training. I hope you're all coming. The innate abilities training starts this Saturday, but when I was writing a little love note to all of you about the innate abilities training, and I can describe that sometime later if some of you don't know what that is, and please tell me if you don't know what it is, because I definitely want you to know about it. I wrote, I remember at 17 years old declaring that compassion, peace, and heaven was possible for humans if we just learned to listen to ourselves and to each other. I said it to some adults and was told that I was so Pollyanna and I would understand reality one day. Oddly, if you've watched the movie Pollyanna, which I highly recommend, by the way, she changes a town, an entire town of adults, simply by being unapologetically, unconditionally loving, speaking her truth, and being truly herself. She was a relentless beacon of what's possible. May I enlist you in converting to Pollyannaism? Isn't it funny how we've interpreted Pollyannaism as not living in reality, or pie in the sky, or just being silly, when in reality, if you actually watch the movie, it isn't about that at all. It is about a relentless champion for change. That's what it is. It's about someone who is laser beamed for unconditional love. So, and the last thing I wanted to share is maybe creation's version of a realist is simply an alchemist with a vision of a compassionate, creative world. Maybe creation's version of a realist, maybe living in reality, is simply an alchemist who knows everything is changeable, and the alchemist has a vision of a compassionate, creative world. Maybe that's reality. Who knows? Just saying. All I know is that we have a lot of help, and I'm going to talk about a lot of that help today. So, P.S. I'm going to warn you. In our first, yippee, yahoo, in our first video, that awakening by definition also means having more fun, love, compassion, and fluidity in your life. This may occur more and more consistently and cause severe cases of unfamiliarity. And, by the way, the antidote for unfamiliarity, continue engaging fully in your awakening, as unfamiliarity, oddly enough, is cured by relentlessly settling for nothing less than sense. This practice eventually will cause extreme cases of familiarity. So there you go. So, guys, so glad to have you all here. Cool. All right. Onward and upward. So who is helping us? Who are we being helped by? Well, I think first, extraterrestrially speaking, we have to go back in time. Now, how am I going to describe all of this to you? Let me put it in a context. The context is this. If you had told me when I was 15 years old that there were extraterrestrials, I would have told you were nuts. I didn't want to know. That was too scary, too big, too frightening, too much. How do you cope with that information? I was early 30s. I married my former husband Gary, and his father was in the Air Force. Now, his father had long passed away, but his father had been very adamant about sharing with Gary some experiences he had had in the Air Force, where they were doing maneuvers over the northern part of Ontario, and they saw lots of things. It wasn't Aurora Borealis. It was ships and exploratory vehicles and things that could consistently, they saw these things. And Gary shared this with me, and all of a sudden it didn't seem so off the wall or so crazy. And this is in my early 30s. So I am now in my late 30s. I'm now in my late 40s. And my goodness, what a full circle it's been, huh? In that, not only, I'm going to give you some of the experiences that I've had personally first before we get into the rest of what we're going to talk about. But not only have I personally been blessed by a journey that commenced with a lot of illness, as a matter of fact, that caused me to get into the holistic field. The woman who introduced me to the holistic nutrition field, her daughters and she saw energies and communed with other planetary beings, and I didn't believe them, and I rolled my eyes because, remember, I had just gotten out of a corporate career. I just thought it can't be, that it just doesn't. Come on, you're being woo-woo, you're being crunchy granola, you're being kind of like the way, the exact same way, in fact, that the adults had called me Pollyanna. And now I look back and I think, how interesting. So I want to describe to you my communions with beings from elsewhere, physical communions, actual communions. Probably saw recently that the Defense Minister of Canada did a very powerful dissertation on the existence of extraterrestrial beings, all the way to saying that they're working with governments and working with scientists to advance science. They're sort of kept to some very quiet places where nobody else would know about them, but he was saying it quite matter-of-factly and was disgusted at the rest of the world's government that we just wouldn't speak the truth, or the governments just wouldn't speak the truth. If you haven't seen that video, I'm sure Cheryl's going to post it any minute now in the chat, because it was actually quite powerful. But what I'm going to ask is that you copy and paste it and wait to watch it later, because we have some things to talk about here. So here are my experiences. The first place that I experienced beings from elsewhere was in wakened dreams, actually when I first came up with Get Out of Your Own Way. I was being communed with some of the star-seeding beings that had information around how the decisions, beliefs, and paradigms we lived into directly impacted the vessel that is our body, and that you would never truly be healthy unless you reached into that dimension and found a deeper truth than the protective truths that we had developed from living in our egos and trying to protect ourselves. So in real life, and again, I'm going to be extremely transparent and incredibly open here about stuff. I'm just going to assume that since you're on Quantum Wake Up Calls, you're ready, willing, and able for these conversations to happen. So I'm just going to check our... I love you too, Irene. Thank you. It's so sweet. Yeah, I think some of you probably are pretty aware too that this is a fairly vulnerable subject for me as well. So what happened was I had direct conversations. I thought it was a dream, but it couldn't have been a dream because I was writing the entire time. And I was having a very loving, incredible voice that knew things about the human genome, about the physical conduit that we are. And because we have Our illness is never illness. What I was told and shown, and it was so obvious and blatant, it was just ridiculous. What I was shown is that this human body actually exhibits symptoms. The smallest symptom, like right now, this chair digging into my back, right down to things like cancer and multiple sclerosis and muscular dystrophy, right down to Hodgkin's disease and all of these kinds of things. These things are all manifestations in the physical body communicating sometimes a very intricate, basically convolution that our minds have created of the truth of who we are. And that's why it's called dis-ease. They started to show me what is necessary, in which I communed with people and others could do the same. And in the ability of myself to actually heal myself, because at the time I had migraines, and the ability of myself to see that that coming to full circle on the stories I'd told myself about who I'm not would actually relieve me of the migraines and the depression that I was suffering from. And so what happened was, as soon as I knew, as soon as I, from that higher frequency and that communion and the knowing that this is someone who knew, this is someone who was in on the original formulation of human being. And I knew when they were speaking to me that they were speaking the truth as far as my little human pea brain could interpret. As best as I could translate, it came through, and I didn't intellectually know anymore that we had the capacity to be and do so much more than what we were being and doing. I knew it, and I could also see in my body, when you look at the twisted strands of DNA, within that are aspects that even in the three-dimensional DNA that get activated that aren't being utilized by most of humanity right now. And those aspects are actually, let's say, little frequency tuning forks. That when you get greater truths, those frequency tuning forks actually vibrate within the DNA. And what happens is, in fact, if it's a really powerful truth, you'll get so much energy running back and forth between you and infinite wisdom that you'll get goosebumps. So, as kind of like there's too much energy for your skin to handle, like that. And so they activate me, and what happens to me is that now those little tuning forks resonate at the same truth level, and my job on the planet with you, just so you're very clear, is actually resonate that same frequency and upgrade, activate. That's what a cellular activation is. It's updating, upgrading, activating, and having you know the same truth. And even if we don't use highfalutin scientific words, what we do get to do is we get to know without the science behind it. And then we can find the science. I mean, that's what happens to me. First I get the information, and then somewhere someone is doing the science. So that was my first communion with the starseeds, or I call it the Adam and Eve crew. Because really they are the Adam and Eve crew, aren't they? So it is absolutely, and yay Irene, and everybody. And Susan in Syracuse, you're not very far away. Great to have you here. By the way, I'm just going to say this too as I go forward in this conversation. for those of you who know, there are people that would love to hear this Quantum Wake Up Call, who are part of Quantum Wake Up Calls. If you can make sure you get a hold of them, because I know this is going to be a particularly juicy one. So the next thing that occurred for me was that I realized that whoever was speaking to me was not from here. They were not from here. And it wasn't, some human guidance realm like, Jesus or Mary Magdalene or some scientific guru or John of God or, it wasn't anything like that. I knew that nobody knew what this being was saying to me. For some reason, it didn't freak me out. I wrote all my notes. Get out of your way came from that, and get out of your way has evolved to be nothing about nutrition or food or bodies or health or symptoms, although it certainly can include that. Many of the people listening right now are from our program Flight School. And Flight School, we were just talking about how the body is a translator for all of the information that comes from the infinite. It actually is so powerful at translating the information that comes from infinite wisdom that if you never listen to anything but your body and learn the language, you'd have everything you need. You truly would. You'd be free. So I hope you guys that are doing the homework from Flight School, you're feeling it, because it's some pretty powerful homework. So, next. So what happened next for me is that when I left my husband, I had more wakened dreams. And the wakened dreams I had were visitations with luminaries. They were luminescent beings that were small, and I would say they were glowing white, and there were 3 of them. And they showed me all sorts of things to assist me to come into congruency, mostly so that I would be able to work with you guys. And I'm going to paint the exact picture for you. I've never told this story to anyone but my very, very closest friends. So I just want you to know that. These luminaries showed up. I walked into a room and those best friends were with me. Those sweet, wonderful friends were with me in the room. And I was awake. And although I'm sure my friends don't remember being there. And what happened was shown something about my divorce, and I got shown something about some other issues that there is, and it got put on a whiteboard and it got written, and the doors were closing by themselves and the chalk was writing by itself, and everything was very surreal. And I knew that those were, it's almost like I was writing it without touching it. I was closing the door. I was hugging my friends without touching them. It was all completely through, it was all energetic, and I knew that we had these abilities. I knew I had these abilities before as well. And these beings were right there, nodding their heads, going, yes, 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 yes. And the details, which are not important, but the details, plus it might incriminate someone, the details that I got shown were absolutely true and were shaking to me because they showed some pretty deep deception was present in my life. And most importantly, was not the deception so much as what the rest of the world would call true Pollyanna nature, which is being far too not wanting to see the so-called negativity in the world. What I was shown is even the people that I love, even the people that I had trusted the most, had done some things that were dishonest. And it was a platform where I got to go down a rabbit hole of seeing, they started to show me, these luminaries started to show me what was going on with the family of 12 who run the world's economies and the banks, what was going on with the oil industry, what was going on with corporations, how money was exchanged. I got shown all of that, not in a way that's frightening or horrible, but in a way from a much bigger view, from 30,000 feet. And I got told, Jennifer, if you're not aware of the whole truth of what's happening on the planet, you won't, as you upgrade yourself, as you remember who you are, as you wake up to who you are, you won't be able to bring all of the density with you because you're not including it in your awareness. You have your head in the sand. I didn't want to hear about negativity. I didn't want to hear what I perceived were conspiracy theories that were silly. I wanted to, I just thought if I could just shine my light and be la 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 la. Now that goes back to the Pollyanna, the adults around me thought I was that kind of Pollyanna. But the true Pollyanna in me knew that in order to be powerful, I had to be aware of the darkest, to be able to include it in my experience, to bring it into the light, if that makes sense to you. So, and I say this not just because it's my story, but perhaps some of you have been doing the same. The next, I would say, most profound experience was that I then had a boyfriend who was abducted. He was abducted long before I knew him, and he had a raging career making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in corporate America. And then he went on, he was in a book by a very famous writer about abductions, and he was willing to go on Oprah along with this author. So he did. And he went in Highbrook. He went on Oprah saying, isn't it interesting you joined us right now, Brooke? He went on Oprah saying that he had been abducted by aliens. And corporate America dropped him like a hot potato. He was shunned. He was dropped by his clients. He could no longer work. He also found himself disconcerted, and he started to go to all sorts of channels and seers and, really people that were helpful, but they were making him feel very special and making him feel very, you're the one that the world has been seeking. And it really messed up his life a lot. It messed him up a lot. And I realized there was no way that he was imagining what had happened to him. He was just looking for some answers. It's so funny. And there are many people out there right now writing books and creating organizations, right, Brooke? And Cheryl, that actually are assisting people, not so much that have had, you don't have to be abducted, but we kind of know that something else is going on. We kind of know that there's more to life. We kind of know that we're being communed with by so much more than what we see. We know that. I think that video from the Defense Minister of Canada, first of all, was incredibly courageous for him to allow himself to be YouTubed all over the world. And you can tell he's not crazy, he's not loopy, he's not out of his mind. Clearly, he was told and given information and seen information that definitely proves, not only proves, but it's just an is. So, what's next? So I'm going to tell you the next experience, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about why are they here, what are they doing? Can we please stop talking about waiting for them to come? Half of us, actually about 60% of all of humanity, give or take, has experienced lifetimes on our spirits have poured through bodies on other planets anyways. So does that make you an extraterrestrial? I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to a group of extraterrestrials. All I know is there are too many people that know the kind of harmony that's possible because we've lived in societies and civilizations where harmony reigned, like these luminaries that I'm talking to. And so how do you get that experience? Well, you sure as hell weren't on planet Earth, I'll tell you. Because as we evolved, that's when the density started. So we'll get to that in a second. The next experience I had, which probably was by far the most meaningful to me, again, this is the first time I'm sharing any of this anywhere. Well, there were two. Two of them I'll explain. One of them was over the past 4 years, we have visited crop circles every year. Crop circles, and it's funny because long before I even knew what a crop circle, I knew a crop circle existed, but I had no idea where they came from. There was a man named Janosch, and you can look him up actually, Janosh. I think it's the THE-Arcturians, ARCTURIANS.com. You'll see that he was a graphic artist and he was on his knees begging God. He was agnostic. He didn't even believe, really, he didn't know whether there was a God, and he just begged consciousness. He said, please help me. I'm sick. I'm tired. I don't want to live anymore. Show me something that gives my life meaning. And what happened is he was a graphic designer. He worked for he owned an advertising agency, I believe. And he started designing these designs that were in the geometrically exactly the same as the crop circles. And he had never seen a crop circle in his entire life, ever. And it took one of his friends saying, Janosch, how did you know about crop circles? And he said, what's a crop circle? And you can even see the crop circles. You can look up the crop circles that his designs mimic. It's fascinating, very amazing. But he calls his site the Arcturians because Arcturians are one of our starseed nations. So my next amazing foray was don't ask me why I want to go to crop circles. Trust me, you guys. Doing what presents is one of the weirdest things, although it has changed my life. It is what I wish for everyone to be able to do. Living fully in the present allows you to do what presents when it makes no sense. I didn't really have that big of a calling to go to crop circles, but for some reason it kept presenting, so it was, all right, here we go, crop circles, here I come. And Lori, welcome. Yay for redirects. So I go out to the first crop circle. I sit in the middle. I see the luminaries. I have a beam of light come around me, kind of like in Star Trek where it's like, beam me up, Scotty. I go directly up to these light beings and the light channels down on me, and I can feel the multi-dimensionalness of the crop circle. The crop circle goes 60 feet up, it goes 60 feet down, and I'm encased in a crop circle. Right? I'm not on a crop circle. I'm encased within a multi-dimensional activation, and I can feel it. And I know that the activation that it is unconditional love. Not only that, but then I go and look at the church that's overlooking the crop circle, and it's the Church of Unconditional Love in the middle of England. And I see the luminaries up here, and they're smiling. And so I knew that these were communications. Crop circles, just so you guys know, I've been in tons of crop circles. I have friends that have witnessed crop circles being made. And I want you to know this, that crop circles, true crop circles, about, maybe 25% of them or 20% of them are man-made, but 80% are not, and you can tell. The geometry in them is astounding. And I just want you to understand something. Do you know from the air, a true crop circle is perfectly symmetrical? But on the ground, in that part of England, the ground is like this. It's rolling, tilted, rolling. To make something that's perfectly symmetrical from the air would be humanly impossible without some major kind of laser from the sky operating. Uh, just on top of that, when you go in a crop circle, in the true ones, the stalks are actually bent. They're not cracked. They're actually heated, and you can't stand the crop back up again. It's as though, like with plastic, when you heat it, it bends. Well, the same happens to the crops. But the last one for me is just ridiculous, is that the crops are woven. They're in patterns on the ground that there is no crop duster in the world or crop machine in the world or lawnmower that would be able to do the braiding and the intricate designs right in the grass. Insanely beautiful. So are they real? Well, of course. I mean, of course. Of course they are. And who made them? Well, mostly with the guidance of other realms, Arcturians. Arcturians, and of course you knew it, Irene. Of course you knew it. I mean, we all know it. Their activations, even when you look at them, when we take pictures and we post them on Facebook, that's on purpose. The activations activate you as well. That's why Janosch's work is so cool, because all of those are the activations for humanity. They are all on top of a watershed. Most people were saying, well, you need water for those extraterrestrial lasers to work, but that's not true. The reason why they're over top of watersheds almost all over the world, and what I was shown, is that those watersheds go out to the ocean, and the activation goes out to the water, and the water then goes all over the world, becomes the rain, rains down, and the water carries the activation as well. That's why. So, very powerful, these Arcturians, and they work on geometric encodements. So they were involved in the 12 DNA encodements. So pretty powerful. Last but not least, I have a beautiful friend, Hazel. Hazel and I commune on let's say a monthly basis. Hazel has written many books. Yeah, it is very cool. I have a great picture of you, Kat, from France in the farmer's field. Speaking of which. When I commune with my friend, we are clearly from the same coming through. We are clearly from the same family, board of light workers, council of the shift, extraterrestrially speaking. And she and I sit together and we do what I call, and what in the yoga world would be called darshan. Darshan is when you sit with each other and you be with each other and you look beyond the three-dimensional and you actually see the full dimensions of who the person across from you is. And both of us had the capacity to see before us the physical fading out and the light beings around us and the some of the dragon-like beings around us and the different aspects, all extraterrestrially assisting us, all standing beside us as a high council of, let's say, do your work here on Earth. The message I constantly get from them, guys, is that they do not want to mess with, to fascinate us, to give us too much information, to be too out in the open at all. They do not want to do that because it would take us off our journey. Our journey of awakening will take us to a place where we'll be able to commune with them all. We'll be able to see them, we'll be able to have conversations with them, where we'll be able to do all that. It won't just be the scientists behind the scene and the crazy government stuff. It will actually be a communion in the universe. But because we still get so fascinated by all that stuff, it actually takes us out of the game that we're here to play. And the game that we're here to play is to embody fully all those encodements so that the children that we have and that our children's children have evolved bodies that actually have integrated all of the other 10 strands of DNA through the pineal gland out into this body. This council that it stands beside me when and stands beside my friend Hazel when we do darshan, this council is a council of the same beings, and all of them are part of the original star seeds. So what's a star seed? The star those that have, let's say, crossbred to create human beings. The crossbreeding of which assisted to develop the encodements that allowed us to have the innate abilities that we have to see energies, to commune with each other, to be able to talk to, I'm looking at a tree outside and I'm just saying hi, and of course it starts waving in the wind. This ability. I remember doing an exercise with a group where there was buttercups on the ground, and we just sat there and we smiled and loved them up, and all the buttercup faces turned towards us as an acknowledgement of the light we were emanating. They turned toward the light. I mean, the sun was over there. It's quite amazing. These are all innate abilities. Our innate abilities that we've been talking about so much lately, those innate abilities to spontaneously heal, to talk through telepathy, to move the doors, shut the doors that I was talking about, to move a piece of chalk across the room that I know that I was actually doing. These abilities all came from the star seeds. It's part of our encodements. Those encodements are profound and incredible to our, three-dimensional humanness. But to who we were designed to be, what I'm constantly shown by this council, who we were designed to be is close as creation has ever come to having a three-dimensional state which creation could express, experiencing the heaven that exists as creation in all states, but the heaven that exists in the fluidity of all of creation, how do you bring that to a three-dimensional world with senses? Because when you experience yourself in your universalis state, you're everything. You're the stars, you're the moon, you are not any of it. You're all of it. When you're in that state, though, you're not with your body, with your senses, with your hearing, with your sight, So we were given 6 senses. And the 6 senses include, all the 5 senses, plus a whole array of what I would call feelings. Instincts, intuitions, seeing energies. What we would call feelings is like feel, touch, taste, see, sight, hear, all combined in one with your telomeres, now being able to experience. So I would say probably a better word would be experience. So the 6th sense is being able to experience the multi-dimensions, right? These other 10 levels of DNA contain 2 skill sets each, some of them 3, that allow us to actually be the civilization consciousness, being able to experience 3-dimensional existences and beyond as heaven. That's who we are. But we haven't embodied all of those abilities as of yet. That's why we're doing that training, by the way, starting on the 29th. And please, my gosh, if you've not yet signed up for that training, please make sure you go to awakening.to and sign up, because it's really going to be something else. So that is all part of my extraterrestrial experiences as well. So where to from here? Who are these wonderful extraterrestrial essences? What's important to know right now? Because I want you to know that to simply give off information often overwhelms and has us all go a little off kilter. And Kayla, are they all wonderful? But I can tell you right now, what's more important to know, my love, is this. And thank you for asking the question. Anyone can ask any question. In fact, that's where we'll go for the last 10 minutes, is that you can ask questions. They're all very different, Kayla. They're very intellectual, scientific beings amongst them. There are very loving, almost, ghost-like, like translucent beings that emanate such unconditional love. Don't need, a mouth to talk. They talk without any of that stuff. They don't even have mouths. There are those that are very pragmatic and get it done like. There are those that are very concerned about encodements, like the Arcturians. There are those that are examples of harmony, like the Lemurian kind of energy. There are those that are interested in the, let's say, the dolphin energy is the same as one of them. So that playful, incredibly expansive, everything is possible way of being, which is the Pleiadians. There are those. So that's our way. There is 1 or 2 of the 7 to 9 of this group that are, I'm seeing that it started at 9, but 2 of them dropped away because they were part of the sort of manipulation of humanity towards, God's out there and we're in here. No, we actually are God expressed here an expression of God here to experience what it's like to be in a 3-dimensional world with all these senses. It's very, very cool. So when someone tells you that God's out there and we're separate, it would create thousands of years of polarity and us all fighting to get somewhere and compete, which is exactly what happened. So those are what I would call opportunistic aspects, Kayla. They're very opportunistic aspects that have taken advantage of humanity in not such a beautiful or nice way. However, the cool thing is, as we wake up to who we are, what they constantly show me is this: that as we wake up to who we are, many of those consciousnesses are being activated by our upgrades and the tuning fork that exists within our DNA that emanates out through the satellite dishes of our telomeres. Affected by that and seeing that there's another they're being evolved, let's say it that way. Our evolution is affecting the entire universe, which is why the extraterrestrials that are our starseeds are assisting us so much, because their societies have been affected by the temporary failure of this race to thrive. and so and so some of these beings live 500,000 years, you have to understand. So in the grand scheme, 5,000 years of kind of being off track as in humanity is not actually that long. And the powerful yearning of humanity to remember who we are is why we're all here. It's why you're here. It's why everybody that's listening right now is here. We're here in response to the asking to come out of the density, and it's not just our asking. It's also the asking of all of those that help Starseed and formulate us. Their asking also is causing our awakening as well. And in fact, we're part of those civilizations. And we came here because we embody the harmony that's possible from the civilizations that we've been in that are part of those star seeds. Especially the ones like Lemurians and Pleiadians and Sirians and all of those that were very heart-based and about harmony. We've all been there. That's why we can't understand why society is the way it is and why we were born here, because we embody that harmonic. And what we're doing the rest of our lives is remembering ourselves how to get back uniquely as one person to that harmony, and then finding the others all over the world and holding hands with them to actually activate that same harmonic that exists on, 3 main other planets that we've all experienced at least one of, and several of us, all of them. So are there opportunistic extraterrestrial? Yes, absolutely. But again, it seems so cliche, but you guys, love wins. I'm telling you, the higher your frequency, yes, and Pashats too, Lemurians, all of those. It's fun. It's interesting. We were just in, it's so amazing, isn't it? We just came back from France, and this is how higher levels work. While we were in France, the last day, my sweetie and I were in France, and we were in Toulouse, and we went back to Toulouse after the group left. And we had one extra day. On that one extra day, I was surrounded by the entire Not Belonging Club, in that the day that I was there was the Gay Pride Day parade in Toulouse. And it was absolutely amazingly joyful, the experience of full-on harmony. And while we were there was a little flea market to the side, and there were 2 humanoid leopards, cat, in bronze from the place where original man was supposed to have come from. And I bought them both. They were probably the most expensive things in the entire flea market. I gave one to my friend, and one is going to hang in my new house in Florida. So just wanted to tell you that. It's pretty amazing. So, because the cat-like people are the Pashats. It's just so cool. So I see here, I just want to read another question. I think it's from Len or Leanne. Years ago, I wrote down the true meaning of life is to experience just what you said. I wrote words almost identical to what you just said. Yeah, absolutely. Being the use of the absolutely. And what we get to do starting this Saturday is to actually embody all of that. It's just amazing. So looking to see if you guys have any other questions. We're going to finish up just in a couple of minutes, but I want to kind of summarize for everyone. Do is I'm gonna end the recording. I'm gonna restart up again. So you'll probably you'll be able to be there, but you just won't see me. I'm gonna close it off and come back. So is there more to talk about? Sure, we'll have another quantum wake up call. But I think what I want to share with all of y'all is the most important aspects. You are loved beyond measure. Here cheering you. We can't get involved or be seen, because if we are, then we will disrupt the natural evolution process that was meant to take place from the beginning. For more obvious to you. We can speak to you through channels, of which there are so many, like Jennifer, who can embody us because they've had so many lifetimes living with us, and therefore activate the part of you that remembers. Specifically what you remember. But for those of you who've had incredibly scary experiences with some of those opportunistic energies, whether on the planet or off the planet, just know that that time is over. You are so safe. You are so loved. It is time to awaken. But it's also time to be brave and vulnerable, to let go of the protective mechanisms that your ego has put in place to dance in the world in the way that the opportunistic energies have presented. The infrastructure that they assisted you to create is a falsity. It is not an illusion, it is actually real, but it is false to the life that it's as though the emperor has no clothes at this point. We can see through the politicians, we can see through the economy, as can you. It's so obvious. That's what has power. Your ability to see truth and the unconditionality that you come to your fellow man with, understanding that all of the ways that they be that may push your buttons or may hurt really have very, very, very little to do. Really are. And your compassion, the fact that their ways of being that aren't quite maybe of the highest frequency, their ways of being are equal in proportion to the degree to which they've been hurt. And your presence of unconditionality melts it all away. That is our greatest message. Just as Jennifer says, the answer to everything is wake up to who you are. And you'll discover what that means more and more all the time. Guys, yes, I get so moved as well. So, love you guys. And I'm going to catch you on the flip side. I'm going to join you in about 3 minutes as I open some windows. And love you deeply. Again, if you haven't registered for the innate abilities or seen what it's all about, please, for goodness sake, go to awakening.to, okay? And a big love you, Brooke, big time. I felt a little bit of that for you there, sunshine. So, okay, you guys, I'll see you in a minute.